So today we're going to be talking about the first 5 things that I recommend you do to your Overland build. And afterwards, we're going to be talking about the first 5 modifications that I actually made to my Tacoma and why they're a little bit different than what I'm recommending you do. So stick around to find out why. So welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, I'm Sean, and each week I release a new video covering the adventures that we go on, the gear I use, sometimes the processes that I have in place, or in this case, the vehicle that I have to help get me there. And recently, I've been receiving more and more questions about vehicle modifications. Specifically, there's someone last week on the last video asked me, hey, I just got this Toyota Tacoma. What modification do you recommend that I do first? And I have to say, I really appreciate that somebody would reach out to me regarding that. It's not really a question that I really expected to hear on this channel. I kind of set out to make this channel more about outdoors and adventure, but I know there's quite a few Tacoma enthusiasts out there. And so this video is specifically for you, but if you have an overland vehicle or you're trying to get into overlanding, this could be just as equally as applicable. And so with that being said, let's get started. So my number 1 recommendation would be tires. What you see here is I've got the Falcon Wild Peak 285 75 16, so that's a 33-inch tire, and I absolutely love them. Now the reason why a tire, I think, is the first thing you should do is if you watch some of the adventures that we go on, I'm going to be totally honest with you. If you've got a stock 4-wheel drive vehicle like a Toyota Tacoma or a 4Runner or a Land Cruiser, if you watch our videos, the adventures that we go on, as long as you got a good set of tires, you're practically there. There's not a trail that I've taken that a stock Toyota Tacoma with a good set of tires couldn't do. Now, as you see here, to be able to fit those 33-inch tires, I did have to do a lift, but I'm not even necessarily recommending that you have 33-inch tires. Some stock 31-inch tires, which will fit on a stock Toyota Tacoma, I believe something around 265, 70, 16 or something like that. Those are the tires that I had on my last Toyota Tacoma, an 08 pre-runner Toyota Tacoma. That fit just fine. Very, very, very minimal rubbing, if any. And to be honest with you, at least to do a lot of the trails that I do, I mean, don't get me wrong, make sure you do your research before you go. Take your vehicle where it's capable of going, but that is a good place to start. Now, as far as tires are concerned, I also think it's important that you have a full set. And by full set, I mean a spare also. So I think it's really important if you're going to be going out doing some trails that you have a spare tire that is the same size that you have on your vehicle. Because wherever you are, you got to get out of there too. And if you get a flat on the trail, you want to make sure that your vehicle is just as capable to get you out as it was to get you in. And so with that being said, I've got to be honest with you guys. I do have a full set of tires. I do have a spare. It is a 33-inch tire as well, but it's not a Falcon Wild Peak AT3W. It is whatever off-brand was on this truck when I bought it. It's pretty much a street tire, and for me, it's just there in case of an emergency. Now, I don't recommend anybody makes that decision, and shame on me for not already doing that, because I don't know how durable that tire is going to be, and if I'm in some rocky terrain and I got a flat on these tires, it could be a little sketchy getting out of there. And so I just want to be open about that. I'm trying to be as real as I can in this video, because I know there's so many different videos out there telling you what they do or what you should do, but people don't actually do. And I'm just trying to be honest about what I'm doing. The right decision is to have a full set of tires that are completely capable of, whatever terrain you are visiting. And so you know that better than I do, and you know what you plan on using your truck better than I do, but I don't recommend that you follow my lead and have some cheap tire as your spare. I think that's a bad idea. All right, so next up, Now this isn't necessarily a modification to the truck itself, but I'm going to consider it a modification just because you're spending good money and it's something really important to have. And that is a tire kit is what I'm going to call it, at least. So right here, I've got an air compressor, a tire pressure gauge, and some tire deflators. Now, the reason why I think this is super important is because just as important as having a good set of tires, being able to air down and air back up those tires is equally important. Now, this tire deflator kit is made by Boulder Tools. As in all my other videos, I'm not sponsored by anybody, so this is just what I've chosen to spend my money on. And these are really cool. So what they are some tire deflators that you can preset to whatever PSI you plan at running at. So these are still set to what I used on my last trip, which is about 25 PSI. And I guess what's kind of annoying about them is it's not like they're easily adjustable. As you can see, it's not like there's like any markings or anything. You set them by using them. And right now they're set to around 25 PSI. And you know, so typically I do run it like 25 PSI if it's not like a super rocky trail. Just gives me a little bit more comfort and a little bit more tread, I guess you would say. When I go on some rockier trails, I will air down to about 20, but since I'm not doing that too often and what I'm doing is kind of more of like fire roads just recently, that's why they're set at 25 versus 20. But, you know, sometimes I will go down to 20. Now, next up is this pressure gauge. Now, I kind of have to use that alongside the deflator kit because obviously you kind of want to like measure as you go. My kit's set up pretty well that I can pretty much just leave them, and you know, when I take them off, they're just about at 25, so I'll let out just a little bit more air, you know, manually, but at least I'll be able to check to see where I'm at. And then obviously when I'm airing back up, there is a little bit of discrepancy between my air compressor and what it actually runs at. So I do use this while I'm airing up to make sure that I get back up to the correct PSI that I like to run on the road. Okay, and then here we've got our air compressor made by Vaer. Now this thing is just, you know, it was an affordable air compressor and it's worked really well for me. It's real simple, hooks up to the car battery, and you know, it takes a little while. It does get pretty hot, and so if it gets too hot, obviously I gotta take a minute, wait for it to cool down. But as everything else in my build, you know, I don't have a ton of disposable income, and so I've got to use what the budget can afford me. It works really well. I think I would recommend it to somebody who's in a similar situation as me. Of course, there's better products out there, and if you've got the income for it, by all means, go for it. But, you know, I think going the affordable route's not a bad thing to do. So, really like this guy. The next recommendation I'm going to make is rock sliders. Now, the reason why rock sliders, I'll say rock sliders and skid plates. I do have a front skid plate. I don't have the whole bottom covered. I'm still shopping around for that. But at least rock sliders, if you're visiting some areas similar to me, like the Eastern Sierras, you're going to come into some really rocky terrain. Just in case, I really want to protect my truck. They also really help getting my wife in and out of the truck. It isn't a very high lifted truck, but she's not the tallest person, and so she has a little bit of a issue getting in and out of the truck, and the rock sliders help a lot with that. So the reason I would recommend them, though, is absolutely for protection. What I have is the RSG Metalworks rock sliders, and I really like them. Now, they came bare metal. That's just what I ordered, and as you can see here, I coated them with like that spray on bed liner stuff, and then like a pre-sealer coat that was supposed to like a primer coat that was supposed to give it the surface to be able to spray that bed liner on. And it just, either I'm just using it too hard, which I don't think is the case, or it just didn't work out the way I thought. And so eventually plan is to take these guys off and probably get them powder coated. My recommendation, just do that from the get-go and don't be a fool like me. Okay, so now getting to number 4. This one I would say is interchangeable with number 1, and that just depends on you and what your plan is for your build. So, you know, I've got a 33-inch tires on there, and so suspension is important early on to be able to fit those. Now, personally, this truck came with the suspension that it's on right now. There's only one change that I made, and I'll cover that in a second. But this truck came with a 2-inch lift in the front and like add a leaf, I guess you would say, in the back. So just depending on the weight you have back there. But that allowed for 33-inch tires right away. Now, if I didn't already have that, I probably would have started with 31-inch tires, just to be honest with you. But since I did, I went straight to 33-inch tires. In fact, when I picked this truck up, they weren't, like I said earlier, they weren't the Falcon Wild Peaks, but they were 33-inch like street tires. I just went down to American Tire Depot, and I'd been wanting to try the Falcon Wild Peaks. On my last truck, I had the BFG KO2s, which I really liked as well. But I'd been really wanting to try the Wild Peaks, so I did that. So I know that was kind of like a long-winded way of starting this next topic, but let's talk about suspension. Now, what I have on my truck right now is a Trd Spring. As I said, this truck came like that. And this truck specifically comes with Bilstein 6112 shock absorbers in the front, a Trd Spring. Obviously, these are just the stock upper control arms. And then in the rear, I've got Bilstein 5160s with remote reservoirs. And then I put in an Icon Vehicle Dynamics leaf pack. So I know I've covered this multiple times on this channel. So the reason why I think suspension is a pretty important topic to cover early on is, one, depending on the tire setup that you want to put on your rig, say you want to go with a size 33 or maybe a size 35-inch tire, you're going to have to make some adjustments to your suspension to be able to make that tire fit. Also, I carry a ton of weight, and so I lose a lot of clearance when I'm fully loaded up. So that rear leaf pack that I have in the back accounts for that extra 600 pounds of gear that I have in my truck all the time. And so those are some important adjustments to make. So the reason why I labeled this number 4 instead of number 1 is because, like I said earlier, a 31-inch tire will get you an awful lot of places and already leaves you pretty capable if you're running the right vehicle platform like a Toyota Tacoma or 4Runner, something like that. So that brings us to number 5, and that's upgrading our lighting capabilities. And as you can see here, the only lighting upgrade that I've done so far is these Baja Designs Squadron Sports. So I did say upgrade the capability of the lightings. Now I also did upgrade the headlights to the TRD Pro headlights, but that doesn't upgrade the capability of the lighting at all. The fog lights, however, are the Baja Design Squadron Sports, and these things are incredibly bright. Now, not only are they a really easy modification, super easy to do, and pretty affordable, but it also is like one of those things, you don't know what kind of road conditions that you're going to come across in the evening when you're running these trails and getting off the grid. And being able to see the obstacles that you're coming across and know where you're going, I think is incredibly important. Now, I realize that a lot of the stuff I've covered is pretty basic stuff. But for somebody who is, just getting into it, I totally understand where you're coming from and some of the questions that you have. And while a lot of my answers probably sound like a lot of the answers that you're going to get from another off-roading channel or another overlanding channel, whoever else, it is my opinion and my recommendation for someone else to do. Because when somebody asks me that question, like, hey, what should I do to get out there? Or I just got this new truck, what's the first thing you recommend me doing? You've got to think strategically, and just in my opinion, with the kind of off-roading and the kind of overlanding that I personally do, those are my recommendations. Now, everybody's different and everybody has their own way of doing things, and everybody's vehicle's different, everybody's places they are exploring are different. And so there's got to be, obviously some critical thinking that goes in on your part, and you've got to decide what's right for you. Now, in just a moment, we're going to get into what I actually did first on my Tacoma. And this may be a little bit more relatable to you if maybe you're a first-time Tacoma owner, you just bought a new truck. These are going to be kind of some of the things that you might be able to relate to a little bit more. I mean, everybody likes bigger tires, lift, all that kind of stuff, but is that practical? So, what is the very first modification that I did on my truck? It was window tint. It was a window tint. Now, I think at this point, it's important me to clarify some things. Now, the gentleman that made the comment last week that kind of inspired this video, and there's been many before him, just got this new truck, what should I do? I was trying to think about, obviously, what's the best advice I can give him for off-road overlanding purposes. But, you know, obviously looking back on what was the first thing that I wanted to do, it more had to do with like, all right, what do I not like about my truck? What do I want to make better? I'm really excited, just got this truck, what can I do? And something that I really like having on my trucks is a window tint for multiple reasons. It keeps the cab cooler. It just does a little bit more sun protection, and I think it looks great. In fact, most of my first modifications were all about looks, and I think that's okay. All right, the second modification I did was these floor liners. Now, I did buy these specific floor liners. They are the OEM for the 2012 to 2015. They also have a version for the 05 to 11s. Floor mats, and as you can see, they get a ton of use. I mean, I take these things out, spray them off, and it stays relatively clean underneath. Yes, I am lucky that is not carpet underneath there, and so this is also easy to clean up as well. But on the topic of the floor liners, before this truck, I had an 08 Toyota Tacoma pre-runner with two-wheel drive truck, and I had that thing for a decade, and I loved it. I had the Husky Liners in that truck, which I do like more than these ones. So if you've got a truck with carpet, which most of you do, I know, if you've got a truck with carpet, the Husky Liners are much better. They grip the floor a lot better. These ones I had to go with because they don't grip the floor that well, and since it's not carpet, it's kind of slick. So when I first got this truck, I tried moving the Husky Liners in there, and it wasn't safe because it was kind of slippery and slidey, just due to the slick floor, which I like having. And then in the back here, you can see I actually still am running those same Husky Liners instead of the OEM ones, just because I already had them and they work great, and I don't have the same sliding condition as I do in the front. So those work awesome. All right, so next up, I'm a big fan of changing out headlights. Now, these are the Trd Pro, and while it's kind of hard to tell in this light, they have a darker look than the OEM ones do. So they're not such that bright chrome look like I had when I first got the truck. There was nothing wrong with the original headlights. You know, I'm just a fan of the Trd Pro ones, and so I spent the money and I switched those out. So while we're up here, we'll also talk about it. I won't say this isn't one of the first things I did, but I also wanted the paint matched grill. I tried to paint myself with a spray can, Duplicolor, but the problem that I had was really in the clear coat. Sorry, I almost blanked on that. The clear coat. There was too much orange pill, and it kind of came out more of like a matte type finish. And so I just wasn't really a fan of that. And so I ended up just ordering one from a Toyota dealership on eBay. And I really, 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 really like the paint matched grill look. So I just wanted to note something. As we're kind of going over some of this stuff, you're noticing that, yes, this is like highly cosmetic. And something that I've kind of noticed is there's a lot of like judgment that kind of goes around these online platforms and forums about what you do with your build. And the thing is I kind of want to just give some encouragement to some of you guys that are just getting your trucks. One, try not to listen to that. If you just got your truck and you're excited and there's these things that you want to do to it, then do those things. You know, I mean, obviously I gave my recommendations for what I think your overland and capability type changes should be, and obviously those are high priorities, but this is your truck, this is your money, and if you're excited about making some of these smaller cosmetic changes, I mean, you should do that. It's your vehicle. And in addition to that, I just want to make a little plea to the off-road, the overland community. We have a lot much more in common than we do have in difference. And, you know, we're kind of all brought together by our love for the outdoors, our love for vehicles, our love for gear. I mean, we all have the same common hobby and interest here. And it's kind of a bummer to see people putting each other down. And so my encouragement is just like, let's see a little bit less of that. a note that I have on that is I recently started a camping and overlanding community and on Facebook. It's a camping and overlanding Facebook group. And I'd encourage you guys, I'll link it in the video description. Go check that out, especially some of you guys that are just getting into this for the first time. Go head on over there if you want to kind of continue this conversation, this dialogue. If you've got different ideas that you want to bounce around our community, we're going to keep the place positive, informative. And so obviously there's a lot of people that have a lot more experience than I do. You know, I'm just nobody here on YouTube. But head on over there and bounce some ideas off some people that have some experience, some people that have the same vehicle as you, maybe have the same goals that you have. So head on over to that Facebook community, join up, start up a conversation if you've got a topic that you want to talk about just a little bit more in depth. So I think that's a great resource, and I'm going to try to make that a positive place for us here. Okay, next up. The next modification that I did was interior lighting. And as you can kind of see, it's dark, so it's kind of hard to see it. These are bright white LEDs to replace the nasty yellow interior lighting that this truck used to have. And so what's kind of cool about this is I actually just took this off of my last truck, my 08 Tacoma. Before I sold it, I swapped the old bulbs back in and then took these guys out for this truck. And so I really like that. So these bulbs, they make a big difference, especially at night. Sometimes when we're out at camp, and I like to leave a lot of stuff in my truck, a lot of gear, a lot of equipment, sometimes flashlights, knives, whatever. Maybe I'm charging something. And so it's just kind of nice to have that really bright, accessible light in the evening at camp. And so just kind of navigate inside the truck. Obviously, as you guys saw in the last video, I've also got something like this in my camper shell as well. So number 5 is actually going to be kind of like 3 things. Now, as some of you guys know, I already had this camper shell on my last Tacoma. It was an 08 Tacoma pre-runner 2-wheel drive. When I got this truck, I just took the camper shell to a local paint shop, auto body shop, and they paint matched it. It cost me about $600, but they did a really good job. At the same time, I upgraded the Icon Vehicle Dynamics leaf pack in the back to support that weight, as well as the incoming weight from the deck drawer system. I've already got videos on both of those things, so we'll kind of leave it at that for those 2 things. But with that being said, as you can kind of see, out of everything that we talked about in the first 5 recommendations that I made to the actual first 5 things that I did, there's quite a big difference. And that's just because when I'm asked about what recommendations I would make to somebody, it's off of what I think is most important, maybe not off of what I would do first myself, because the first things that I did, obviously, they weren't all that important. They were just kind of, preference things. And I think that's okay to do. I think it's cool to do. It's fun to do. So one final note. Now, a lot of the guys that have reached out to me and asked me, hey, I just got this brand new pre-runner Tacoma. It's a 2-wheel drive. I'm really excited about it. What first modification should I do? Okay, so I've got 2 answers for that. And the first one you might not like, but if you've bought that truck and you're watching my channel and you want to use it doing the things that I do, my number 1 recommendation to you is to sell your truck. And the reason why I say that is I owned a 2-wheel drive Tacoma for over a decade. And I knew from the get-go it was the wrong decision when I bought it. I did it because I got a great deal on the truck, and I'm just making excuses here. I shouldn't have bought the 2-wheel drive. I regretted it for a really, really long time. Now, if you plan on just going to national parks, campgrounds, or you just want to build a really cool looking truck, there's nothing wrong with that at all. My fear for you is if you do want to do all the things that I'm doing, get off the grid, do some overlanding, you may get a little down the line. You've bought a new suspension, you've bought these tires, you've done all these things to this truck, but you're going to realize that eventually this isn't going to take you all the places that you want it to. And even some of the times you may go, but you kind of have that feeling in the back of your head, should I be doing this trail? Should I be going to this spot? And you might regret it. And so that's just a note that I wanted to share with you guys. Now, it's been a while now, but I did sell that Tacoma, And as you guys know by now, I did purchase this four-wheel drive TX Baja, and I got a great deal on it. So if I just told you to sell your truck, there's hope. I know the four-wheel drive market's a little crazy right now, but my next video, I'm going to be breaking down the selling process of my two-wheel drive Tacoma, the build process of this truck, and how much everything cost. And I just feel like if that's something that's on your mind, it's gonna put you a little at ease. So make sure that you catch that next video. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys out there. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please make sure you like and subscribe. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you out there.